Yep. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fed Up with me, Fed Up Gaz. Joining me today. Oh man, here's the first stumble already. So, do I pronounce this as Aawks or Aawks? Aawks.
That's
Hey,
perfect.
It's not wrong. It's not wrong.
I
Like,
was wondering.
like the animal, like the big hairy beast.
Yeah, but, first of all, could just before I start nerding on that name, could you introduce yourselves for us? You know who you are in the band, what you do as well.
Alrighty. Well, my name is Randy and I play the drums.
Hey.
I'm Chris. I play guitar and vocals.
Hey. There's one thing I noticed when Curtis sent me the link, and I was reading about the band, and it said a love of high fantasy as well with psychedelia. I immediately honed in on the high fantasy part with being such a colossal nerd. I thought, right, I'm sold. That's it. I'm already sold. And I was wondering the name Aawks as well. I just wondered if this was a possible reference to the green skins, Stoner Aawks, possibly. Yeah, that's just how my weird mind works, man.
So
As well.
it's funny. We named the band probably in 2016, 17. Actually, before Randy was even in the band. My current wife at the time, she was my girlfriend, and we had a different drummer, our bass player was playing guitar, so we were two guitars and drums,
Yeah.
and we were I named it Aawks because I thought it was open enough that we can make any genre of music that we wanted to.
Yeah.
So I've always been a huge fan of heavy music, but at the time we were kind of doing more like indie rock, like somewhere like the Pixies maybe.
Yeah.
Meets like, I don't know, that West Coast surf stuff that was happening around that time. Kind of like Ty Segall, the OCs kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just gonna like make music that I really want to make. I'm just gonna make heavy stuff. And it's just been getting heavier and heavier since then. So,
but isn't that nice? It's funny. Last night's band, who called the Medea Project, kind of said something similar. It's like with the name that they can do anything. They can go from like really heavy, kind of gothic doom to some of the tracks are like gothic rock kind of thing, and then you're not stuck to one particular genre. You're not pigeonholed. If you want to do another album, say where you want to go back to doing some lighter stuff or keep it heavy, you're not limited. And I think that must be one of the most beautiful and satisfying things for musicians, when it's like, hey, we're not going to be pigeonholed in here. We're going to leave this free to open to do with whatever naturally comes out with us, what we feel in that moment.
Yeah, I think it kind of defies assumptions, because and I'm a fan of a lot of these bands, but when I see a band that's called like Acid Bong Wizard or something that
just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
I just immediately expect a sound, and then maybe it doesn't meet my expectations or something, right? And with us, it's like people are like, what the hell does that even mean? And anyways, there's a story, but I feel like Randy's got something to say.
Oh, it's always just for me. The ideas too is I don't easily fit the mold of what maybe stoner doom or psychedelic doom or any of those genres kind of have going on. So Aawks for me has always been that like awkward setting point where people are like, what are you about? Why are you here? And then by the end of it, they're like, you do fit in, and it's nice to be who you are and then be kind of encompassing and surprising. And so Aawks kind of for me has always been that I'm the outsider on the end, and then it switches around and kind of you just end up becoming part of something. So we're all a little awkward, we're all a little weird, and we all embrace it. So
we're on the same. I'm a colossal nerd, as will be clearly demonstrated throughout the show today, and it's weird because I love a lot of sludge, doom, and stoner rock as well, but I'm not a stoner. And people are like, oh, you don't smoke it, you're completely, I guess, straight edge and all but name. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. I love the music. I don't care. I don't care if I go and see one of these bands and it's like struggle to see anything because of all the smoke. It doesn't matter. As long as I enjoy the music, and that's what it's about. The riffs grabbed me when I was listening to the split with, I'm going to have so much trouble trying to pronounce this as well, with I'll call them A.
like this part of your body, your eye.
Yeah.
AIWASS.
AIWASS. Well, that's good because the native slang here, we'll say I or I man. So that rolls off my tongue now.
Yeah.
But yeah, those riffs on your side of the split really grabbed me. They were really badass, really big and crushing. And then I was checking out your album before that. I hope this is okay to say, but it had like that very much Fu Manchu vibe in there as well, very catchy. But I felt, and this is no insult to Fu Manchu, you'd kind of like got their tempo and rhythm and speed, but put even more emphasis on the riffs. That's just what I was hearing.
Well, they're huge. I'm a massive fan of Fu Manchu. Like
Me too.
Since I was like a teenager, and I still to this day love all of their albums, everything they put out. I'm a huge fan of, and so that's a huge compliment. I appreciate that because, I mean, if I can get anywhere in the same universe as their riffs, I'm winning. You know.
To be honest, man, I'm with you. They're one of my favorite bands. You know, I even like Vista Chino, Brant York solo stuff as well. And again, it was the riffs that was so catchy and infectious, and that just hooked my ears in. And considering I only heard about your band 2 days ago, I think from Curtis, and now, well, you've got another fan. Now I'm like, I want to follow these. I'm not just saying this because you're here. I do feature. I feature music I even don't like. You know, I'll get asked sometimes by bands, do you have to like our music to come on the show? And I said, no, not at all. I will still talk to you because I've got my favorites, which are more on the heavy extreme side. But at the end of the day, I'm a music fan. I love all music, and I'm interested in how people such as yourselves play, create, the inspirations, the ideas. Definitely going to get into the high fantasy parks. I thought I've got to nerd with them about that. That's just a bonus. But anything like that in an album cover, I'll buy it. Ninjas, fantasy, sci-fi. That's it. You've got me.
Yeah. So to speak to the riff comment, like, I love riffs, and I love the theme of riffs and how they kind of interplay with the melody and kind of the beats and stuff. And for me, it's like I love extreme music. I like super heavy stuff, but the stuff that I want to make, I want to be enthused about playing it. And sometimes I feel like some of that extreme stuff, I don't know how those guys or girls, people, whatever, I don't know how they get the energy to play such extreme stuff every night, where I feel, like I have to be in the mood for it, where the Fu Manchu style riffs or the Sabbath style riffs or the stuff that has kind of a rhythm infused into it, where it could be any genre, could be rock, could be whatever. I get enthused about the riff every time. It's almost like when we're playing the songs, I want to be as enthused as the audience is, right? So I will like write a riff that might be half decent, but if it's not something I will be enthused about for the long term, I usually just scrap it.
Yeah.
Because I want to be excited about it every time I play it too.
There's nothing worse if you're seeing a band or an artist play live, and even if they're really good and there's no passion there, they're not enjoying it, and it takes away something. I've seen some bands like that where they've been really good, but there's just been no soul there in the music, and you feel, as a fan, you feel like you've kind of been robbed in a way, that there's something there missing. And as you said, I remembered. I apologize. It was Randy,
Chris,
Randy and Chris. Yeah, just making sure. I have the memory of a goldfish, isn't it? It goes. But yeah, Chris, and the riff is what initially can grab us with a song. It did with me. If you hear that riff, even if it's a lighter genre, and that grabs you, it's like even with a thrash band, if you hear that opening riff, and immediately like, oh man, go out that hype it, and you want to hear the rest of it. And it doesn't matter if it's the fastest song in the world, like I say, Fu Manchu, if it's got that good atmosphere, that good riffs, you also have the end of that really kind of haunting vibe as well. So like very, very visual. I say this a lot with music because I think that way. But it's almost like a musical kind of interactive story in a way where I'm seeing this in my mind. I can hear that in your music. I can see it like there's some ritual going on in one of these horror movies, or that whole kind of suspenseful scene. And if you've got that killer riff, as you've said, Chris, that's it. That's all you need.
And I think the other thing I didn't mention there, so you don't have to do drugs to enjoy stoner rock. And
yeah,
there's a couple guys in our scene that are straight edge that make like, stoner rock. And to me, and it sounds kind of corny, but the music is the drug. Like
it is.
You have something that hits you like that, and it pulls you out of your brain, pulls you out of your moment, makes you forget about the stressful day you had, makes you forget about all the shit that's going on in your life. That's better than any drug that you could take, as far as I'm concerned. And that's kind of what I'm shooting for too. I want to present that.
Well, you 100% agree. It's one of the best forms of escapism we have in life. I think music and movies, I know there's other things, but the sports as well, but music and movies are for me the finest forms of art we've got for escapism. And you're right, music, it's really weird when I hear something that I really like, regardless of the genre. It's like a chemical reaction goes off in my brain. And then if I really like them, I'm addicted to it. And you're like on this high. And it's almost, I guess, a sense of if someone is, off the face with, I don't know, Bongzilla, whatever. Yeah. And then you even have the coming. Sorry, Randy, you can get a word in.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's just, I totally feel what you're saying, because it's that idea that ever since I started playing drums and learning what he needed out of me, I could feel that every song was a bit of a journey. And like Beyond the Cosmic itself, that album, it was like one of those kind of epic movies where there's a journey and there's highs and lows and valleys and mountains to climb. And it was an entire feeling. And it gave me a real passion for it because of that feel of the journey we were taking within every song. And some of it was a little lighthearted, some of it was a little more heavy. But either way, you were transported and you were moving through kind of time and space in your brain throughout those songs. And then when we took on the challenge of the split album, 1831, which was this epic piece of almost 15 minutes, like 14 and a half minutes.
Yeah.
That was like, and we can touch on it, but that was in theory based off of a historical figure.
Ooh, and, do tell.
So we'll definitely get into that. Her name is Helena Blavatsky. She was a Russian Ukrainian type mystic, and back in the 1800s. Yeah, she was born in 1831, which is the name of the song.
Yeah.
But she was a real independent thinker and a real innovative mind that decided she was not going to sit in what was standard of what a woman should be of those times. And instead, she really took into free thought and free speech and spiritualism. She created theosophy and wrote books. And even though she would get married, she was like, no, I don't want to be at home and be a wife. And she would travel independently throughout the world. She, through stories, true or false, into Tibet and learnt from the monks there, down into India and learnt from the gurus there and stuff. She came and brought a lot of that Eastern learnings to the Western world in like New York and Chicago and stuff. And her life really took on that form in that song when we were given her name and kind of looked her up. And I was like, the thought of a woman doing all that stuff in that time and kind of given like a big FU to everybody who told her either she was wrong or she was not capable or whatever it was. That's where, like for me, that's where my drums really took a passionate journey throughout that song.
Yeah, and I mean, that is inspiring for sure. And if we consider that period, 1831, so you're in the early Victorian era, very, very oppressive. If you were born in the wrong class system, a woman, whatever you are, very, very difficult. And the chances are, especially if you were in many of the cities, joining a gang, trying to survive any way you could on the streets, or joining the army, literally to eat, as many of them did then. it really does bring that into context, because it's not like now where people can do that, but back then
Yep.
it's much more difficult. And I'm absolutely intrigued already with hearing that she went to Tibet and India, being into martial arts, that whole side of it, the mysticism and spiritualism.
Yeah.
I think, man, that is awesome. And what a, I mean, I don't know books, but what a life she must have had to explore and talk to all these people in all of these different countries, especially at that time as well, when it would have taken weeks and weeks on the ships just to even get there.
Exactly. And she refused to follow pressures of, a certain religion or a certain belief system. She believed we were all under one large spiritual umbrella, and that we were all, there was no Catholicism or this or that. Like, it was all together, and that we could all coexist. And she used to, what was it? Something about, she would do seances and talking to spirit worlds. And there were a lot of naysayers, and she could have been full of it. Who knows? But at the same time, she spoke with such conviction and such pride and confidence that it didn't matter. She wrote these amazing books with these amazing theories and ideas. And I felt like that really was a charge towards people alternatively thinking, I don't have to follow what I've been told. I can think for myself and do my own thing and live my own kind of spiritual journey.
Yeah. And again, whether I always have an open mind with things like that, whether it's UFOs, for example, whatever it is. Sure, we all know there's lots of crazy examples which don't do any of that justice. Okay, they give us a good giggle, but I keep an open mind, because I think, who knows? There's always some credence of truth in some of these things hidden away, and whether anyone believes her or not, as I just said, I haven't heard of her or know anything about her, but I'm already intrigued just on the journey she's taken in her life. And you've got, like we were saying, you've got to respect that, because that was so difficult to do that back then. The problem is, it's like, yes, I am referring to a real life experience here. There's so many charlatans about just after getting money after people. So it's like, you go past a trailer or something, come read your fortune, I give you $5, and I'm like, yeah, I've got the fortune already, I'm out of pocket, that's it. Isn't it? Yeah. And that's the problem then. Or whenever we see this on TV, say, join me today as mystic, from wherever. I always lived with the Tibetan monks, for example, whatever. A lot of the time, we never get a good example. They always find the craziest person they can. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say I haven't laughed or anything, but then I think I must be frustrating for people who generally have seriously tried to, I don't know, look into, say, alternative history, UFOs or something, as I've mentioned, and that just makes it so much harder for them to be taken seriously. But that must have been, one, not only inspiring, but good to do creatively, because it's like you're bringing that history to life in the song. And in a way, it's like playing a musical theatre play of that story of what happened. And those always make good music, where people can look at something from history and just say, look, hey, we're not saying anyone has to agree or disagree or whatever. This is just a story. This is what's inspired the song and lyrics. It gives it that little bit of substance as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just nerding away there with you. So did you, with hearing that, Randy, did that make you then want to deliver the drums, so much more to the level that you wanted, thinking, well, I know she strived in a very difficult period of history, I want to kind of be faithful to that story?
Yeah, so when those heavy parts are hitting, I'm giving every last ounce I have to hitting those drums. But then when we're taking those softer journeys, that's, me taking on that little more her teachings and sharings and just the journey she took, and to be so open to people, because a lot of people would have hid how they truly felt about things, but instead she wanted to spread her message. So that was a lifetime of spreading a message in word and feelings and sounds, and I found that really inspiring and wonderful. So the kind of journey I go through is kind of some of the feels that I get from that idea of this person who existed in a time when women weren't really heard. And I never want to make things about gender and stuff, but that one kind of hit me a little differently. At first, I was like, Blake from AIWASS was like, let's use this as a theme. His song was more based off of her teachings and her actual writings. And then we kind of took on this kind of life journey. And it just, this is all Chris's creative brain, like what came out of it was just this kind of symphony of heavy doom, but at the same time, there was just this beauty to it.
In a way, you could say it's kind of like referenced in a life. If you've got the heavy, the doom, starting in a difficult place, where it was difficult to achieve what you did, and then coming out in the light where, look, I did this. And I think there's a good message there, because regardless of what any of us believe spiritually or don't believe, they're now, and it's quite relevant, because now there's so many people to shout at each other, you know, my way is the only way, you're wrong no matter what. You know, we see it with politics, well, with anything. And you know, you were mentioning, Randy, about her believing that we're all under the same umbrella. Well, even if anyone doesn't, you know, someone doesn't agree with that, at least if we can have some respect and say, look, we don't all have to believe in the same thing or like the same thing, but just be cool with who's cool with you. Treat people the way you would want to be treated. It's as simple as that. It's personally my rule for life. You're okay with me, I'm okay with you. And sadly, there's some people might be thinking, oh, well, this is like a pipe dream. We're never going to get to that place. But people like her, who you told us about, are example of, well, here's a better way we can do things. You don't have to believe in what I believe. If you want to stay in your traditional religion or whatever, no problem. But let's just be respectful and courteous to each other. So yeah, I think there's a very good positive vibe in there. It's caught my imagination already. So with that said, I was looking at the cover of the split, and now we're hearing this, and you've got, and again, this is just how my mind works. I'm a colossal nerd. There's another disclaimer. So you see the red dress is flowing in the background, and she's got like the kind of tree feathered branches. I'm just wondered, is that in reference to her, and also the dress, does that kind of signify the journey that she's taken, the one you just described?
For me, the moment I saw that, we came across a wonderful photographer. She's, I believe, still in Scotland at this time. Her name is Daria Billick, and she's at Dashi on Instagram. She gave us this wonderful portfolio of pictures, said, you know, if there's anything usable, you know, go right ahead and take a look, which was actually given to us for our first album. And it just didn't.
So yeah, I had been scrolling through Instagram, and I'd found this picture that was amazing, and I wanted to use it as our first album cover. And I did a bunch of searching and finally figured out it was an advertisement, or used as advertising for a company that is kind of like dark clothing.
He might know them.
It's called Killstar Clothing.
Killstar, I don't actually, but I'm going to look them up.
So it was just a random. I was like, the image hit me, and it was just all these figures with floating orbs above their hand. They're holding floating orbs, and they're in black cloaks, and they're standing on these like kind of Star Trek beam me up, you know, like discs almost.
Yeah,
that fucking picture is so cool. And so I searched and finally found that Daria had taken the photo. And I hit her up and I said, listen, like, this is a long shot. We're like an independent, you know, doom metal band from Canada. You know, we don't have a lot of money, you know, what would it cost us to take this image? And she said, well, unfortunately, I don't own the image. I took it for Killstar. They own the image, so we couldn't use it. But she sent us this portfolio of all these other phenomenal photos. And if you look at her portfolio, it's amazing. Like, she's really a talented photographer.
Be right up his alley for high fantasy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And
I think she originally was from Russia herself. So she's migrated to Scotland, this kind of serendipitous thing has happened throughout the band's life, where things just fall into place. And I like to think that it's good karma or good energy or, you know, whatever, like good things going around and coming around.
Yeah.
They just continue to happen, and I feel forever grateful for it. So
Yeah.
she was definitely one of them. And that image, when like Blake and Randy and I and our other bandmates were throwing around ideas for covers, we had some, you know, other artists actually, we were talking with them to maybe do some specific stuff. And then I was like, oh, wait, I got this portfolio, and I pulled it out. And as soon as everyone saw that image, they were like, that's it. Like, that is the image.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a striking image, and it just perfect for the whole thing.
And like you said, when you think about the idea of the journey, the lone solo person just going on their own, but having so much thought to share and so many ideas or so many spiritualistic pieces in her mind, and it was so striking and so beautiful. We were like, holy crap, like that was not made for us, that existed before us, and then we just happened to be making this song, and then, you know, based off this theory, and then all of a sudden here we are coming together, and it was like, this is all meant to be. This was all slowly coming towards us in a collision.
It's funny, when we posted it, like advertising for the split, and there was a comment, and one of the comments was, hey, that's me. And the model actually reached out, and she's like,
really?
I had no idea. I was like, well, yeah, you're on an album cover now, so
yeah. That's awesome. I was thinking as you both were talking, as sometimes it is just about that right timing, chemistry, everything coming together, and then you know, those energies bouncing off each other as well, especially if you're making music. And it is a really beautiful picture. And I mean, Scotland is I'm from the northeast of England, so Scotland is literally next door. And a lot of our, you know, landscape is like that as well. And I even like the way, you know, the model on the photo, she's like gazing back at the dress that's laid out like a path, as if she's like reflecting on the journey she's taken, and then like, look where I am now. And I know I'm going to use a very cliche phrase here, you know what they say, but like a picture speaks 1,000 words. But I think if you're musicians or a writer and you see sometimes, you know, you've got a picture like that in front of you, and that just must be so inspiring at times, in the right time. Like, yeah, we'll just look at that and just see what naturally comes out from us playing and writing. And I think that's amazing. Then just what happens, all from a beautiful picture with a nice landscape and the model doing the correct pose, looking back, and then that's what's come out. So,
and that's what's funny, is that photo came after the song, basically. But
yeah,
for
Heavy on the Cosmic, you took a lot of inspiration from
a lot of 60s, 70s fantasy painters, like Roger Dean and Frank Frazetta, that kind of stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with their stuff at all.
I'm not, no, but
if you look at you know, the side of a 70s boogie van, and you'll see, like the guy, the warrior with the sword, and the
and planets, and
it's that kind of stuff. And I grew up in hot rod culture. My dad was a hot rod guy, so I grew up around like drag strips and with like choppers and muscle cars and stuff, right? So I loved that scene. And as a kid, I would look up at these vans and I'd be like, man, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen, right? And it just never left me. I mean, it became kind of uncool at points in my life to like that stuff, but I never stopped liking it for real. So now I'm just like old enough where I don't care, you know?
Yeah, but you know what's funny, man, is the artwork on the side of those vans as well. The see movies is awesome, and now I feel like everything now from whatever era there is, like there's a market for it. There's a scene that can be music associated with it, fashion, artwork, and anything. And now it's like, I mean, the prime example, like how okay, I'm probably going to upset people here. We could do a whole other show and debate on the quality of Marvel movies, but looking at kind of where they were in the 90s and early 2000s until Iron Man came along, and now it's become very mainstream, very popular. So there's the same with all like the vintage fashion as well. There's a market for all of it. And then if you go to the other ends with like now dark synth, dark techno, dark wave, and that's all very futuristic cyberpunk, kind of like the goth fashion, I guess, but more sci-fi orientated. So I think if it works, you like it. It doesn't matter. There's something.
I like
there.
it when they come together, like that.
Yeah.
Kubrick's version of the future, like they call that, future modern, right? Where
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of a mixture of 60s, 70s fashion and like science fiction. I love that. I love that look.
I think something we were mentioning earlier. If it's got that atmosphere, it hooks you in. The same with the riff, musically speaking, and then and then add on the atmosphere with that, strong drums as well, even the melody in parts. That's it. It's all you need. Probably someone disagree and say no, you need a lot more, but some key components, I guess.
I think simplicity. I mean, you build up as much knowledge as you need, and then you try to express what you're trying to express with. I think I try to be as simple and cut all the fat off and keep it. So actually, it's funny that this song is probably the, I don't know, most self-indulgent in that it's so long, and like we had a whole side of a record to fill up, so we were like, well, let's give it, let's give her and try to just do what we can to fill up the entire side of a record with one song. But normally I'm trying to trim the fat, keep it short, snappy, and to the point. And that's just the kind of stuff I like. I don't like to meander too long on things.
Yeah. I mean, there can be an argument sometimes, when I can't think of a band now, but there's one in my mind. I can't remember the name, and I think they had a 25-minute long song. And it wasn't that the music was bad. I thought, I literally can go and cook and eat my dinner in this time.
I love long songs, but like it has to keep me interested,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'm in the mood for something that's long and mundane and kind of banal, but if I'm listening to music to entertain me, I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be exciting.
Yeah, that's definitely right, Chris. I mean, music as a whole is about a mood thing anyway. Yes, of course, I love my thrash, my hardcore, my punk, my death metal, etc. But it doesn't mean I don't like other music. There's lots of sludge I like, stoner rock as well. I often think sometimes stoner rock should just be, I don't mean to insult anyone here, heavy blues rock, because I hear the blues in it so much. And it's like faster.
Pentatonic based.
Yeah.
It's based around kind of simple expression,
Yeah.
And I love the blues, and I love bluegrass, and I love all that kind of old timey, like just good heart, from the heart music, from the balls, from the heart.
Yeah. That's right.
It's not Rush. It's a guy sitting on a porch playing.
Exactly.
That about how shitty his life is,
Yeah. Well, that's why I call this fed up, because I'm always fed up about something. So just thought, come on, if anyone wants to come me on, let's come me on. Yeah. Sometimes when my mind goes that fast, my words can't keep up with it. It's like, I don't care what genre you play. You want to join me? Tell me how fed up you are. You're welcome.
And I love intellectual progressive rock at times. But what I really like is, like, to me, rock and roll is sex, and it's it's the stuff that comes from the kind of this area of your body, from beneath your
I love the way you're being so delicate, but yes, give you props for that. I would have started laughing by now, but
Oh yeah, I wanted to move your balls.
Yeah.
Or your vagina, or whatever you got.
Whatever you got.
Yeah.
Move it.
But there's something to be said about music that has movement, from an A to another place. Oh man. Because it does grab you. There's a band, I think from the West Coast in the States, possibly they're called Shotgun Sawyer. and it's a guy who's playing this like it's kind of like a throwback to that old school kind of blues rock, and there's a rawness in it. And when you hear it, it has the same effect like when I heard the riffs, you know, with your music and the previous albums. You're like, man, there's something here. There's something that holds you, and like, yeah. It's all depends what mood I'm in. Yes, I'll primarily listen to a lot of heavy stuff a lot of the time, but then I can go, as I said, into dark synth, dark techno, stoner rock, doom, even underground hip hop, reggae. You know, there's everything out there, and I think why limit yourself off, especially when you're musicians as well. I think what you can draw from. And this brings me a perfect segue. This has just popped in my mind. I will get to the high fantasy nerd, and don't worry. Would you be, and you may have started working on something for all I know, would you be interested in looking at something else from history about a woman or a man or something that had happened, and use that to kind of create another song like the one you did on The Split, or a concept album around it?
I think that's always a possibility. I mean, writing music is my favorite thing to do, besides, be with my family and that kind of thing. But as far as activities go, I could sit and write music all day long. And that's the first thing I probably tried to write specifically about something from beginning to end and stick to it, rather than just kind of use it as an inspiration.
Yeah.
I could do that again. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say that if someone was to listen to the song, they would know it was about Blavatsky necessarily.
Yeah.
So maybe I could try to write something a bit more literal and direct.
But I think we wanted that. We didn't want to be overt and like only that. We wanted it to be your feeling and your journey throughout the song.
Yeah.
But the inspiration, if you ask, we'll be more than happy to tell you about it. And then it just seems to tie in the more you look around at the visuals that come with. Especially if you're buying the record, there's the slip inside. There's more beautiful art from Daria, and it just speaks to the whole thematic element, but it's not.
I actually did. So the last song I wrote is about a specific thing. I just realized that. So there's this fantasy based story. It's a Viking fantasy. Or Viking. What's the word I'm looking for? Legend, I guess.
I like that you're sharing this. It's so brand new. He doesn't usually share stuff that's so new to him. But please, I like it.
It's not recorded yet, but it's the song is 95% finished. But it's about this ship called Naglfar. N-A-G-L-F-A-R. There's actually a band called Naglfar too, but it's about a ship made of lost and dead souls. And it's made entirely of human hair and nails.
Whoa!
Dead. So it's a ship made of nails, but not like nails. And so the legend goes that if you buried your dead and you hadn't trimmed their nails, anything that was not trimmed would go to this ship and make the ship powerful and big, so that when doomsday comes, this ship will be unleashed and it will like rain havoc on the people that are left, right? So I wrote a song about that story.
Yeah.
But isn't that such a great legend? And it makes a good story to share with people, and then it's so awesome to write music based around that. I often think all these legends and myths and history in general is just perfect to I can't believe I'm saying the word pillage in a positive sense here. University professors will be like, don't encourage plagiarism or something. But pillaging eras from history for musical creation. That's a positive that comes out of it, because it's even, when you get some of the death metal bands, especially the HM2 bands, and it can be very horror based about like the undead and zombies and things. I always immediately I see it in my mind again, like I was saying, like I think of these like sweaty zombies all like slowly crawling along, chasing, wouldn't be chasing someone if they're crawling, but I guess
pursuing someone.
Pursuing steadily, well, on the movies, I mean, hell, if they walk, they can walk at the speed of light. So, well, we can say that this is a zombie that moved really fast, even though it appears not. Yeah, that's how I'm saving myself on that one. Never mind. Let's just forget that.
You have to do whatever we're playing live, especially with our previous album, Heavy on the Cosmic. It's fun to read the energy of the room. And, sometimes we're just talking about maybe the one song is about, things could be really shitty in life. No matter how bad it gets, all is fine. So we have a song called All Is Fine. And it's, you just have to tell yourself all is fine or whatever. But then there's times where you can just feel like this song is about spaceships and taking a journey. And then you're playing Space City and rocking out. And it's kind of fun to watch people like not just get it, but just go into it. Like, yes, like, they kind of get with it and they're into it. Right. And I really enjoy that other people's minds can be open and creatively join in on the experience.
We're big fans. We're big fans of this band from Texas called Brickshot Billy's Burger Patrol.
Brickshot Billy's Burger Patrol.
Yeah, Rickshaw, like the
Rickshaw. Oh yes,
Burger Patrol.
They write songs that are not the deepest songs in the world, but they
holy man
purvey a vibe that is just undeniable. Like if you're having some drinks and you're just in the mood to like let loose, you put that stuff on and people, they can't help but move to it, So I dig that. Doesn't have to be the deepest thing all the time.
Yeah, no, exactly. Again, it's getting back to that mood thing, and sometimes you just want that fun escapism or sense of fun to have a go. Look, this is silly, but I'm going to enjoy it anyway. I have to remind me of the name of them later. I'm going to have to look them up. That sounds hilarious.
In this time, we're going to give you a bunch of bands, and then we're going to send you a list, and then you're going to go on a listening journey of Canadian and American bands that you might not have heard.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool with me. I do that myself with people. I was saying to a recent guest, I'm naturally hyper. It's probably why I don't have to get stoned or do any alternative substances, because I'm stoned by nature in some regards. And if it's a band I haven't heard of or a movie, I'm one of those people where I have to blurt it out. So even if it's in the middle of the night, and then I'll be like messaging one of my friends, and if they're on this side of the pond, that can be a bad thing, because like you've got to hear this for you. It's like, do you have to tell me? And I'm like, yeah, do. If it's from one of my friends from over your side of the pond, it doesn't matter. But I totally get it, and I used to do that when I was a DJ. Before doing this, I used to try and play bands from absolutely everywhere, some of the most obscurest places, because it's so wonderful. There will be a band that plays some kind of metal or some kind of punk in the most remote of places. It can be, Thailand, Nepal, wherever, and it might only be one or two bands, but there's always something there. And then there'll be their own version, their own bit as well, that it's even got to some, a very remote part of the world. So totally down with that.
Yeah, I love that globalization or the globalism of this music that we do, right? Because we're in contact with bands from like all over, like from the Philippines, from Mexico, from wherever, it doesn't matter. And we just all have a unique love of that heaviness or whatever that is, that it's a tribal, guttural thing, it's something undeniable energy that we tap into, right? That we all dig.
Yeah, it's that collectiveness. To go even nerdy with this further, maybe it harks back to our ancient ancestors, when all they had was the stories to share and the rhythms they were using literally anything just to create like a drum beat, I don't know, with bones or something. I'm not encouraging somebody to go out there and do anything and play with bones, although Highland are very, very, very cool. I love how they use all their like very ancestral kind of props and instruments and stuff. That's awesome stuff. Getting back on topic just for a moment about your music, I've been thinking, I'm saying that a lot in shows, but just continuing the theme with the artwork there, and you had me thinking, because when I looked at your website as well, and which I'm just going to remind myself of very quickly, and you see kind of like the cosmos in the background with it spinning. It had me thinking, I thought, man, like with vinyl being very popular now, you could do like artwork to support like the split you've just done, a particular song like that. And that gives people an even deeper experience, even a bit of, say, the story of the character on there. There's no limits with it. And that just popped in my mind when you were mentioning the artwork, Randy. I thought, well, there's a direction to go. And I'm not suggesting to do that. You may have already, but as you were saying, sharing that creative process with people, well, that was what was popping into my imagination there already. So what is I'm curious with, you know, now learning about the inspiration behind the split 1931. I'm just curious, what's the feedback that people have given you, and especially when they've learned about that inspiration, of people being as intrigued as I am?
Definitely a lot more curiosity and a lot more. They go back a second time and they listen, and there's more of an intent now. Whereas, you know, you have your first or second experience listening to it, maybe not knowing there was a theme, and you have your own journey, your own expression to it. But then once you learn, you go back and listen again, and it takes you somewhere else. It's now a different feel, and it's a pretty neat idea when people say, you know, the first time I heard it, it was this or that, it was good, it was, like you said, great riffs or the haunting vocals or whatever. But then when you say about a woman's life and her journey in this time and her mysticism and her belief systems that she portrayed and lived through, then you go back, and then now these waves of sounds that you're hearing, you can feel yourself going on a journey and maybe have felt what maybe her strife was, her ups and her downs and her calms and her crazies. Like there's that, you know, there's that great part where we had our friend Colonizer do that synthy stuff at the end, and he did some vocals backwards, and it's still that same kind of seance-y spiritual, you know, voices, and you know, afterlife, but you know that there's something else out there more than just what you see with your eyes. And so it's an audio experience of things, and the theme kind of elevates some of that when you know.
And curious, interesting you mentioned the synth at the end as well. As I was saying about that, you know, I listen to dark synth and dark techno as well, and that's got quite popular recently for those reasons with the atmosphere, because some of it can be extremely sinister, really dark. I can tell with a lot of the song titles, you know, I've been saying this on shows, you can tell it's a lot of metalheads as well, because a lot of the song titles can be metal or very influenced. It's kind of like electronic death and black metal, actually, in a way. But I think with shows such as Stranger Things, they've helped get those genres more known again. Even John Wick as well, with the dark techno fight scenes in the clubs. And I think used right, even to close or start off an album or even an interlude, it can add that little, add an extra layer on top of the atmosphere that's already there as well. So I thought it was a very interesting point.
I never thought of it before, but if you kind of put it into, like, if you had to attach, not on purpose, but like attach like a show to give like a visual of how things, the ins and outs and the ups and downs, like attach a show to Heavy on the Cosmic, I would like Black Mirror that, really.
Ooh.
That each episode's in of itself, but there's this journey and this piece, and there's this something that kind of sends you one way or the other in that kind of interdimensional kind of trippy thing. It just popped in my head.
I've never seen Black Mirror, and it's got about 3 seasons. Is it as good as people are telling me?
It is 5 or 6. I think some of them are
right.
And there's one really cool interactive episode. I wish they'd do more of that stuff where you actually, I don't know if you've ever read Choose Your Own Adventure books when you were a kid.
No.
So Choose Your Own Adventure books, you'd read you a certain part in the book, and then it would say, if you decide to do this, go to page this. If you decide
right, I see.
So they did an episode, Bandersnatch, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So it's a Choose Your Own Adventure movie. So you get to a point in the story and you say, if you want the character to do this, click left. If you want the parent to do that, you click right. And then the story takes a different turn. and it's really cool. It's a cool.
It sounds, yeah, it does. It sounds like those games. I think there was a company called Telltale Games. I'm not sure if they're still active, and they made like interactive video games just like that, where you'd get to a point, right, and it was kind of like an interactive novel, like describing, right, the character can do this, or it had multiple endings. That
Yeah.
it did some for Batman and things like that. So that's pretty cool. There's so many shows, to be honest, and I have a
Yeah.
that just keeps growing. And always, you know, I'm telling somebody, oh, you've got to watch this, and then they are, and it's just, I'll get to that at some point, and man, and then I always try and make a priority, and this is going to be no doubt for fantasy and sci-fi, and then martial arts stuff, and then history as well. Those are kind of, I guess, the staple grounds I go for before something else. So perfect excuse. I've behaved myself for a while. Don't worry, we'll come back to the music. But the high fantasy part. So, right, just like I think, you know, history and mythology can go so well with metal music. High fantasy is just absolutely perfectly built for it. So, would you be then? Game of Thrones is the obvious one, and I'm just curious. Have you read any of the? I think the guy actually passed away some years ago. The David Gemmell books on about Trust the Legends. It was like kind of like a Conan the Barbarian kind of guy.
I have not, but I'll write that down.
Yeah.
Give me the name.
Yeah, David Gemmell. He passed away sadly. I think his wife now continues to write. But read anything to do with Trust the Legends, Waylander, and the first Skulgan and the Damned book. Not the second. The second one wasn't too good. But first one's good. Yeah, there's another fan I'm creating. Yay!
So yeah, it's funny. I haven't read. I go through phases of reading in my life where I'll read, you know, whack of books, and then I'll take a bunch of time off. And we have teenage daughters, and so we do a lot of family stuff, and then the rest of our time is band stuff, and then we work. So like I don't have time to read, and I can't wait to retire so I have time to read. But yeah.
He says that, but he is truly the creative mind that everything you hear comes from that brain. He is always running to our garage, which is our jam space, because he's got a riff, he's got something, and he's got to get it down, and he's got to take some moments. So I don't even know where he could pick up a book, because he's always running out there with another idea or something that it's grabbed him. He doesn't know what it is or why, but he's got to go kind of play out whatever he's doing. And all around our garage is those Frank Frazetta, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So all these high fantasy photos and stuff. And historically, you've said there's times when you just stare at one and it's like what you're kind of thinking of.
I make up a narrative to the painting, right?
Yeah.
So I read growing up like quite a bit of fantasy stuff and sci-fi stuff. I had the opportunity for one of my electives in college to take a science fiction course. It was offered, which is really fun. And I love sci-fi movies and shows.
Yeah.
And I as much as sci-fi, I really dig sci-fi. I like it when it combines with like some drama of some kind, or when it's more like a social sci-fi, almost like Twilight Zone, or you know, like Black Mirror or something like that, or even like some of those. I can't remember the name of the writer, Charlie Kaufman. I don't know if you know Charlie Kaufman, the writer. So he did like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and Being John Malkovich, and those movies, right? So it's like you're taking real life and you're taking regular people and putting them inside a fantastical world. I kind of dig that stuff a lot. So.
Yeah, because I think. I mean, I like it as a whole, but I can see what you're saying, because it's kind of putting that real world element in it, even though it's sci-fi, and then a possible scenario of, well, how would these people say live if it's set in the, you know, the far future or near future? And again, referring back to, well, it's not that I can't remember her name. I'm just thinking, can I pronounce it correctly? That's all. But getting back to,
Blavatsky.
Yeah.
I'll let you do the pronouncing on that one.
There's no test later. Don't worry. You're okay. You're okay.
Yeah, it's the same thing, because if you think, just like when you looked at the story about her, Randy, as well, how did people live then? They still had the same struggles, the same thoughts. Okay, there was more difficult periods when it'd have been more, harder for us. We wouldn't have had the same freedom, say, for example. So I think putting that in with sci-fi or even fantasy, those real world elements, because okay, it might be a different reality or a different world, but the feelings are still going to be the same. There's still going to be the same experiences. There's still going to be the good and bad there, or if we ever do get to the good, which would be great. So it adds that little bit of weight to it. The same with music, for example. One of my favorite characters in fantasy, there's not so much high fantasy, is Dris Duerden from D&D, and he grows up in it would make a great movie, but I think the budget for it would be astronomical. But he grows up in the Underdark, and he's a dark elf, and it's a matriarchal society where the males in this one are the weaker gender, and he is trying to kind of break free from that society where we're not going to. Cut a long story short, the dark elves in D&D, there is some good dark elves that live like above the surface world, but the ones in below ground are generally not the kind of people you really want to hang out with, like really, really bad. I don't know if you know Warhammer 40,000, but that kind of level of evil where it's like, look at them the wrong way, that's it, you're dead. And yeah, his story is fascinating, how he kind of breaks free from that and tries to get away from it all. And it's a bit like Game of Thrones with more sword and sorcery, I guess, because you've got all different like political houses, and they're all kind of turning on each other just to get one more step up the ladder. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm getting so carried away nerding here. So
it is all right.
Yeah, I'm always apologizing for every show. It's
all right. My fantasy shows are more like Vikings and stuff, where there's just that little bit of history where that person existed, but they've just let your mind go with it, right? Like how did they pull that off? How were the shield maidens the way they were? How did they pull off getting across the seas and stuff like that? It's that same kind of feeling where you're just like that struggle and that constant push and pull. And, maybe that's still with our music, a lot of that comes back in where we like to take these journeys, and watching those kind of shows, it's a constant journey and a constant struggle, but you're getting to a place and you're getting to a feel, and it's usually quite fun. So it's kind of funny because the Vikings.
No. It's.
I think to me, like all of this stuff, like the sci-fi, the fantasy, like the stuff that kind of connects with me is when it has an element that I can relate to, and whether that's a troll or a Viking or a barbarian or some space person that lives on a different planet, whatever it is, they're going through a struggle. That's just an extra layer that the writer has added to kind of make it interesting, but it always comes down to that human connective element of some kind, or the human experience element, and that's the thing that hooks me. So I was a huge fan of, or I still am a huge fan of Star Trek, and one thing I like about Star Trek is that they're always playing with those kind of human elements, the situations that we may be in, or that we may be faced with, or that might be popped up in a social, like in a societal type of setting. And it makes you think, and it makes you say, well, how would I have responded in this same thing, even though it's on a spaceship thousands of miles away in the future? People are still going through the suffering and all of those things that we all go through as humans now, right?
Yeah, well, it's the same struggles, and you've already got me thinking. I'm going to ask another loaded question. Based on it says fair warning, but before I do, we kind of could go through this in the near future, because you've got the rise of AI. There's the whole debate on that. Are we going to potentially have a sentient robot, become conscious? There's interviews leaked where they've said this is how some of these AI robots, this is how we would take over, blah blah blah. And it sounds like so crazy, like one of these sci-fi movies coming to life. But sometimes I think about it and I think, well, what if that happened? We would then have to recognize that because it's fully conscious, it's a life form. And then if you think going down that sci-fi angle, we start to colonize other planets, start to mine resources or whatever, and we say if we do meet other civilizations, other humanoids or the different, aliens, different species or whatever, that eternal question, which is always prevalent in Star Trek, the human experience. Who are we? What's our place in the universe? Well, that could potentially happen. So I think that's why it makes it relatable. So the end of my nerdy little tangent there, when you were mentioning Vikings, Randy, and I started thinking of, I've seen Vikings and Vikings Valhalla, and I started thinking of another show that I really love, which was Spartacus, the earlier one, and then the Spartacus spin-off shows. I love those shows. So my question to you both is, and I don't mean this to be arrogant or patronizing at all, I'm not disrespecting, death metal at all here. Do you think, though, with playing sometimes slower paced music, it is easier to incorporate those elements from fantasy and sci-fi, particularly in the atmospheric realms? I know there's bands like Nile, very famous, they themed all around ancient Egypt, and there's other bands, but I was just curious if it was easier to do that playing slower paced music. No matter, it'll be a faster paced band say, no, hey, we've got a grindcore band, why we do that fast?
So I think, I think musically there are certain themes, things that we attach to certain things. I know, like, it's funny because that Nagelfar song that I told you about, which is kind of nautically themed, right? Yeah. It's in 3/4 or 6/8 time. It's in a waltz timing, which to me, whenever I hear a waltz, it immediately makes me think of the ocean. It makes me think of water. Yeah. And I don't know if it's just growing up, I've socially been attached to that, or if it's the kind of the motion of the ocean or what. But there are definitely things, maybe they're, genetic DNA based because we've did them for so long. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but there definitely are things like playing slow conjures certain things, allows you to, more easily tap into those themes. Also, like using certain effects, certain guitar effects, or, musical effects like delays, like echoes, reverbs, those kinds of things. They conjure up, to me, when I hear those things, they conjure up visual scenes, or I'm able to put myself more into the world of that song using those things. Like, it's like if I used a dry banjo, it'd be hard to make something sound psychedelic.
Yeah, true.
It would be difficult. I'm sure it's possible, but I don't think I can do it. But yeah, I think playing slow immediately makes you think of something lumbering, large, and big, right?
Yeah.
I think that you could make fantastical stuff with faster rhythms, though. Like there's a band called Sorceress that I'm really into that conjures up, that kind of fantastical scene, and they play some pretty fast, more like classic rock boogie stuff, like Zeppelin-esque or Sabbath-esque stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, with our music, and I know you've said this in some way or form when you're in creation, like sometimes it's the contrast. So you're going to have us moving at a faster pace and kind of in your face, giving it to you. And then all of a sudden we bring it down.
Yeah.
And then I'm not always, I'm always striving to learn, but I'm not striving to be technically fast or crazy or anything. I love feeling like I am, I was thinking about it. It's like I'm steering the ship, like my beat is steady and heavy. And like, if they're rowing the boat, I'm keeping that for them. I am their, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I am giving that heartbeat to you. I'm keeping you moving. And then these guys come in, and especially in those slower moments, those hits may be sparse, but the intent is strong. So it gives you just as much feeling as if there were 20 hits in that same two hits, you know? And I haven't been doing this a long time. So I had never played an instrument until 5 years ago.
Wow.
So I guess it's 5.5 now, but picked up the drumsticks, got a couple lessons, and decided, well, he decided for me, kind of. I have rhythm. And so I, kind of more on a Meg White kind of strain. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it clean. But I still find it now kind of is my own thing now, where I love to keep that steady beat, keep that that constant value, whether it's fast or slow. And then when they come in with their kind of reverbs and effects and sounds and feedbacks or whatever it is, I'm the heartbeat of the ship, and they're the ones rowing and steering.
Yeah. I was thinking that as you.
Right. And so there's even a couple of little moments in a couple of songs where I am kind of almost doing that kind of, what do you call that rhythmic beating for like doom, 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 where it's like it's time to row.
I think one thing about a band is like none of us is an ego player. We're not playing to try to impress you with our musical chops. We're playing for the song, right? So, and I like bands that do that.
Yeah, well, that's how it should be. If you are playing for that genuine love and passion, that is going to come across to people. We're all going to share in that vibe is going to resonate. And it's funny, Randy, when you were saying about like the person on the ship hitting the drums, that was in my mind already when you were talking. I was seeing that, but it's so true, because you are like introducing the slow parts in the song, then the time when it's going to go fast now, and it's or a heavier riff coming in, more crushing. So it's like that. As you said, that bass where everything, not bass as in, but the bass where everything starts from, and then, not put this well, where that's right. I had another example of my mind drumming too faster than my words there. And that's awesome that it's awesome you've only been playing for a couple of years as well, and it shows again, hey folks, if you want to do something and what it is, just literally go and do it, and you enjoy it. That's what it's about. So that's really cool, and again, not patronizing there either.
It's never too late.
I knew that she'd be good at it because she has an unbelievable memory for patterns.
Yeah,
like, she's the best navigator I've ever met in my life. When we're on the road, going somewhere, she can remember like the map. She remembers every little aspect of the turns, and like she just looks at it and then it's in her head. So there'll be times where I've written a song and we'll play it, and then we'll leave it for a couple of weeks and come back to it, and I'll start playing it, and she's like, "No, you're playing that song that you wrote wrong. Like, this is how you me." And I'm like, "Oh shit." So you're totally right, because I'm more abstract and kind of chaotic and all over the map, and I want to keep veering all over the place. And she's like, "No, let's bring it back to the pattern that works." Right. And so that she's good at grounding my attention deficit.
But if that's really good though, it's giving you that balance and an anchor in a way, which is really cool. And my navigational skills can be leave a lot to be desired as well. I'm always great, and this is going to sound so awful again. I'm increasing fans of me by saying this. I'm so grateful for support bands when I go to shows, because the time I find the venue, I'm like, oh, I've just arrived in time for them.
Yeah.
And like my friend who's ever with me, like it's like he's giving me death stares the whole journey. Like, we've missed half the show again. Blah 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 blah. I wanted to see these bands, and I am getting better. At that. I try and plan a little in advance now, so at least I have some semblance of where I'm going. And maybe in sat nav helps. It does, but it doesn't with me. I still end up getting lost. Yeah. Oh, just always happens, and I'm always This isn't good to admit live on there. Don't worry, folks. I am on time for doing interviews and things, but I have this ongoing challenge with punctuality, where no matter how prepared I get for anything, I always seem to be struggling last minute to get there. Something happens. It's like one of those comedy movies where they go off and the journey's 60 minutes before, and then they'll all manner of stupid stuff happens, and then they end up being late. I'm like, yeah, that's my life. That's literally my life.
With me, I know if I have to leave for work at say 8:45 a.m.
Yeah.
I can fill my time right up until 1:45, but then I'm like, oh no, just 5 more minutes, and then I'll start.
Yeah, the same.
So then, I just keep pushing, and then it's like, oh, now it's 9:02, and I'm still at home.
I don't fare well with this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Trying to be somewhere at this time, I'm already having anxiety an hour before. I'm like, we need to go. But through time, he's learned me to chill out. You've taught me to chill out a little more. Yeah. And I hope I've helped you be a little more punctual.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Right job,
I'm the same. I'm the same in movie theaters. I'm like, I'm thankful that the trailers can be at least 20 to 30 minutes. So I get there just as it starts. And then it's like, again, friends like, dude, I wanted to. And I'm like, you've not missed anything. You'll sit there complaining about how crap everything looks that is coming out anyway. So I'm like, I'm doing you indirect community service. I'm saving you from that suffering, and we get there literally just as it says, I know Universal Pictures presents whatever, and then I'm like, yeah, there we go. Oh man, definitely not like that with interviews, folks, honestly. So I know you've got some. Actually, no, before we get to that, I just wondered, have you started writing and working on the next full length? Because there's something you said, Chris, about no, it was from Randy. Sorry, said this about your writing, and I remember, and they were Canadian as well. I was talking to the band Bulgarian, and one of the guys was saying he can just write and write and write. It's like a machine, and that is such a talent to have, because I know myself. Writer's block, when it happens, is horrible. It's not always, not that you can't write, you just don't seem to like anything that you're writing. And I haven't come across too many people who are musicians where they constantly can write and there's ideas coming all the time. So that is a good problem to have. It means you're obviously never short of material. So with that being said, the end of my other long-winded question, have you started work on the next album? And can you give us a little bit of maybe some of the themes, not too much, so we don't have to, spoil it.
Yeah. So we're getting close to having enough material for the second album. So again, like you said, you can write and write and write, but just it's the satisfaction of liking what you've written yourself. I don't want to put out. I don't want to, just pump out a bunch of stuff for the sake of pumping it out. Yeah. So I want to write something that I'm proud of, that I want to be, that we're all into, that speaks to what we do. And I think because it's our second album, I've definitely put some pressure on myself to write something that's as good or better than the first album. So I wouldn't say there was writer's block as much as there was a lot of self-criticism happening during the writing of the second album. Some of the songs came quickly, and then there was definitely a period like over the maybe middle of this year where I just didn't like anything I'd written. So I write entire songs, the whole band would learn them.
Yep.
And then I'd be like, after a couple practices, like, that song is garbage, we're not playing it ever again.
Yeah.
And I maybe would take a riff or take a part and say, well, that's a good part, I'm going to hang on to that. But as far as the whole song, it just completely will never see the light of day.
Yeah.
So is that what you do then, Chris? If you're in those writer's block moments, it's I'll maybe try and find something I like, one of those riffs, save that, and then use it at a later date. And I've asked people before, well, how have they got past this? And the answers have been varying. Some have said, right, yes, we do take the time out and come back to it later. Others said, look, we just keep going and see if we can pick some of those positives out and put them together. I'm guessing it probably depends on every person.
Yeah, I'm bad at letting it be and just kind of letting it, you know, giving myself a break. I just want to keep hammering and hammering, but oftentimes I've realized that in hindsight, that's the wrong thing to do, because it's like smashing your head against the wall. You're not going to get where with it. So it's better to let it breathe, let it grow, feed some water to other parts of your life, you know, give some nourishment to the rest of, like, get some sleep, maybe some psychedelics, maybe, you know, some whatever you do to kind
if it stimulates, it works, you know.
Exactly, yeah. Take inspiration from other things, or intentionally, as long as I possibly can handle it, I won't touch or listen or think about music, and I let that subconscious stuff build up again. And that, because I find when I'm in that frustration place, my creativity suffers. I want to be enthused and I want to be excited, and when that you can get onto the enthused, excited hill, like when you're riding that, you know, that wave, then it's like there's so many ideas that you have to, you know, you almost have to slow down just to get them all, right?
I know that feeling. Yeah.
So I found like there was a period of frustration for say 3 months, 4 months of this year, but the ideas right now are flowing, and I'm not putting too much pressure on myself. So that's nice.
Are you injecting some of the high fantasy themes in there? I've got to ask that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, thematically, it's not much different. I would say it's a little bit darker, a bit more occult,
then
a bit heavier.
Yeah,
it's not. We've been described as like party doom by some people.
Party doom. Never heard that before.
Positive
doom. Posy doom.
Posy doom, man.
There's a definite theme of catharsis on the first album, as much as it was about spaceships and monsters, like,
or psychedelics or whatever.
Yeah, it was. There was a theme of, you know, growth, right? Going from here to here, and then having some kind of epiphany or thing that happened along the way. And I say the second album is a bit more concerned with, like, with death and life, and, you know, bigger things, maybe bigger themes.
Yeah.
There's a few clips and stuff if anybody is curious. There are a couple songs floating around out there from the new album that you can find. So, like, there's this wonderful website, Ryefield Studios. They are somewhat local, a couple hours away from us, but they do some excellent recordings of live sets, and then they do a podcast as well. But so one song on there that we did that will be on the second album is called "The Figure."
Yeah.
And that's on there. And then I know, so Black Throne Productions is who supports us and works with us and does our recordings and stuff. And I know he had done a Lost Dwellers recording. I think that's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you'd be able to find Lost Dwellers on YouTube there. So there's a couple of, you know, up and coming songs that are out there into the world of social media lights of things and stuff. And it's very interesting to the first album. I was so new. It was just a literal written pattern, and I repeated and just stayed the straight and narrow. I've grown a bit in that time, and where I'm given my pattern, but then once I can now get comfortable within it, I feel a little more freedom to try to, is it like add on, or is it inspiring another, like a fill or expression? Yeah. So that's been kind of fun to be part of the creative process, because I was definitely not. Yeah. I wasn't capable.
Yeah, she's technically much better than she was on the first album.
Oh, so
it doesn't necessarily mean it's better musically.
No,
like some of my favorite music is technically not great at all,
but it was definitely different. It's been a different feeling for me creating the second album with you.
I think that your abilities are much higher and are much better, you know, for sure. Mm-hmm. Which it's easier to write stuff because her technique is better now.
Yeah, it's like
things a bit further.
Yeah, it's like solidifying that new journey together, from where you started. You know, and I would love to hear that album when it's released. Are you hoping to release that this year or early next
Probably
year?
next year. We'll start recording. I'm going to say maybe late this year,
Yeah.
early next year, and
Yeah.
then you know, when it's all mixed and mastered and all the artwork's done, probably looking at sometime next year.
I would love to do a deep dive with you both about that, get into all the themes and concepts, you know, even if it's, I know you might have songs about someone going on a quest to find a space bomb or something, release millions on a planet with the biggest source of weed ever. I don't know, and then there's some corporations that, oh, we want that because we can sell that and then put lots of tax on it and stuff.
Canada's already done that, or Ontario.
Yeah. We're going out and doing it in space next. Like, yeah, that's it. We'll have that. You can have it, but we're going to sell it to you and take so much. Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking off topic there a little bit. So I know you have a show coming up very soon as well. It's on the 5th of October. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that, where people can come and see you live as well.
Yeah, so we've got a bunch of shows. So we are playing Friday and Saturday this week as well. We're heading off to Sherbrooke, Quebec, and Montreal, Quebec. So we're playing with some bands in Sherbrooke. I don't know the bands we're playing with, actually. They're both new to us.
And that's I find that fun. Like, I love our brothers that we've played with multiple times and stuff. It's like going to a family reunion. You get to almost be inspired by the unknown, right? So it's fun to go to those shows where you've never met. They don't have anything online, and so it's going to be a creative process of a night to see what unfolds. It's going to be a lot of fun.
But yeah, Sherbrooke's about 10 hours from here, and then Montreal's about what, 8?
5.
It's only 5.
Oh no, maybe 6. Yeah.
So we got a bit of a journey ahead of us, an actual.
Yeah.
But yeah, that show October 9th, is that what
6th.
October 6th in Toronto. That's with some great bands. A band called Sons of Arrakis, who you might want to talk to. I don't know if you've talked to them.
Oh God, yes, they're obviously named after Arrakis Dune.
That's right.
Oh, I'm sold already. Yeah, I've got to hit them up. Sure.
So yeah, great people and super talented musicians. Great live band. Yeah. And then a buddies of ours called Low Orbit.
Nice name.
And they're kind of sludgy doom.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Oh, cool.
And then a band called Tumble, a Toronto band that plays kind of like proto doom stoner, like boogie rock. If you were to take like MC5, ZZ Top,
yeah,
they're a bit of a time machine.
Blue Cheer, all those kind of, and ripping musicians. Just these guys can play.
Yeah,
so we're playing with those guys.
Yeah, that's a wonderful creation. Chris hasn't mentioned it, but he's also part of a side project.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a wonderful local community here in Barrie, Ontario, Canada, which is a bit of a sleeper cell. People don't realize, but a large punk community here,
it is.
We call that like grindcore, like heavy metal kind of scene.
Oh, we got all sorts of
stuff.
I
love all that stuff.
And then so this wonderful gal named Casey, her and her husband run a tape label called Tarantula Tapes.
I've heard of them.
They have these amazing releases, which are mainly punk related. However, they did take on heavy on the cosmic with another tape label. It was their first dive into more the doom kind of scene, and it went well. Anywho, it was kind of one of her bucket list goals to do her own kind of stoner doom album. And so Chris has taken part in the recording, and the album is to be is it released? It's coming out very soon.
The album release is the 29th.
Yeah. So her project is called Nova Doll, and it is an amazing piece of work. And so Chris plays on it, of course, of Aawks, and then there is a wonderful graphic artist who has played in a slew of bands through the decades here in the Barrie area. His name is Sean Alton, and he is fantastic on the bass. And then on drums is one of our kind of idol type guys locally from a band called Indian Handcrafts, and he's playing drums, right?
He
Yeah,
plays drums
sorry.
on it. Yeah, he actually recorded it, and then he's doing drums. But he's also Colonizer, who did some vocals and soundscape stuff on the Split song 1831. So Dan who goes by Colonizer,
Nice.
who's also in like 45 bands.
Yeah. Well, you could
He's in a
still
bunch
say,
of super
yeah,
talented guy, and he plays drums on this. And
yeah, you could still say though, okay, I'm in many bands, but I'm not as bad as like Thomas Lindbergh or Florence Sandler, where it's like, yeah, I'm in a different band every week, more or less.
well, Dan is like I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he keeps all the songs in his head.
Yeah,
Because he's playing different instruments. He's doing like vocals in one band, guitar in one band, drums in another band. He's also has a studio that he records in,
wow.
and he's got a family and a day job. I don't know. Like, I don't know how he sleeps.
So he would be he. Sometimes when I ask people how do you maintain that balance, I mean, wow, I mean he literally is the embodiment of maintaining that balance, because that is insane. It's awesome, but wow, yeah. I would love to help you, man, with that other band as well. So when that comes out, you know, get at me and we can get and do a deep dive in about it all. I've heard of Tarantula. I'm not sure. I may have played some of their releases. I used to DJ punk and hardcore shows, grindcore, crust punk, DB, and then all the death metal, thrash, power violence, etc. The only problem with that is I got sent that many bands to play from all the various PR companies and labels, and then stuff about myself. Is sometimes I forget who I've played, or someone will mention a band, or I'll be like, oh God, yeah, why do I know them? And then I can say, you know, go off the show, and I'm like, oh God, yeah, I remember playing them back in. And it's funny with you do still get some of the you get the sludgy crust punk crossover as well. There was a band from Chicago way back in the day called Gallery, no longer active, and they did sludge and crust punk together. Who is the? I think these might be from Chile. I don't know if they're active anymore, but they were called Electro Zombies, and it was a mix of sludge, crust punk, a little bit of doom coming in there, and some songs would be fast, some would be slow, some would go from slow to fast. There was kind of that interchange, and it still had the filthy feels though. It still had like that real grimy feels to it. There was a wonderful band from Ireland called Drainland a long time ago, no longer active, and the girl had incredible vocals, really angry, really deep, and they did the same. They had this like very sludgy feel to them, and then, you know, patient but really crushing riffs, and all of a sudden could go insanely fast, like almost thinking, right, I'm going into some grindcore, power violence, or brutal death. And but it really went with kind of the tone and feel what they were doing. And I know some people, not everyone can get that, but it was somewhat different. But again, it's the beauty of music. I say this a lot in the show. I'm not going to sit here and say I was never in first getting into extreme music, the elitist death metal phase, you know, where, oh, I'm not into anything else, so death metal's only the... And then just giving other music a chance and growing and learning to saying, look, there's so much out here, there's these different styles. And when you come across like bands you've mentioned who can do an alternative take on something, spin on it, I find that equally as fascinating as well. You've definitely got me on the Sons of Arrakis as well. As soon as I heard that, I thought, oh.
I also thought for you as well, when you were talking about like the heavier, sludgier, and kind of that darker, angrier. So the bands that pop locally for to suggest to you to look into would be Ethereal Tomb.
Ooh, I like the name.
Loose.
Yeah.
Overcrook. And who was the I think it's Battle Scarred.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah, but for him, for the thrashier, heavier, like these are our local guys that play the stuff that I feel like you've been kind of...
Battle Scarred's like thrash kind of stuff from what I remember. Overcrook's kind of like, it's like that power metal.
It's all right. I'll tell you a story about involving an animal on the show in a minute, so don't worry. This is nothing to what's happened before.
Just because we're paying attention to the computer and not her.
That's what always happens. Sorry, Randy. You were saying.
Oh, it's all right. So
Oh yeah, I can't remember what we're talking about.
you were talking about loose. What kind
Oh,
of sound
just
are they?
loose. I don't know what you call them. It's like metal, but it's like intense kind of. Ethereal Tomb is more like harsher doom. There's a little bit of stoner. I'd say it's more doom though.
Yeah.
But it's got this kind of almost like a hardcore feel to it.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Very, very kind of socially conscious stuff.
Yeah.
Alexander, the I guess the main guy in the band, he's very kind of he's got a strong stance on a lot of political and social issues. But it's good, and they got a pretty good following actually. It's almost like if you took aspects of like Bongzilla and Weed Eater, but then infused some more hardcore into it. So they're cool.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And we played quite a few times with them. Great guys.
And they're so hardworking. Like they're always creating and out there playing like almost every other weekend and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're. I'll give it to them. They're also young, so good for them. Like get out there and do all those things.
And unbelievable skaters.
Oh
like,
yeah,
kids are
crazy.
I'm sold.
On one line, and it's like, holy shit! Like you guys are legit, man.
What was their skate thing? Skatanic Disciples, and they were doing videos and little skate magazine releases, and they're just constantly creating stuff. And so there's been so many wonderful intercrossings.
Yeah, it's a great scene up here, and it's growing like all the time. There's a local band called Cannabis, local stoner rock band from a few hours away, 3 or 4 hours away from us, but they're new to the scene. We love them. There's all of the Black Throne. Go to blackthrone.com. There's a bunch of amazing bands on there. Paul Witch is from Montreal. Sun Below from Toronto area.
Yeah. Earth Altar from
they're from Halifax,
East Coast, Halifax. So really, really beautiful catalog of bands coming within them now, and we feel really lucky to get to share the space with them and this kind of time and music with everybody.
Yeah, it's like a post-pandemic explosion. Like, it's really started happening after the pandemic.
Yeah, it is, and I'm glad that's happening. Man, a lot to unpack there, but absolutely great. You really have kind of got the vibe of what I've been into musically. Yes, so much hardcore, crust punk, DB, power violence, all the stylings of hardcore, thrash crossover, then death metal, etc., and then sludge, doom, and then expanding with the genres. They used to. I don't know if any of these bands are active. I've only recently come back to the scenes. I've pretty much been on a sporadic on-off hiatus for the last 3 years. But I used to, if I remember them right, there was Pisser. I don't know what part of Canada they're from. They were crossover. And then, God, and this is going way back. A Varnin from Montreal, an old punk festival. I don't know if it's still active. And is it Yannick's band? If I remember the name correctly, Rain of Bombs, who are like a well-known Canadian punk band. And then, there's like I said, I get on live on the show and then I can't remember the bands. But there's another dude who was kind of from, I think he was from kind of the stoner doom scene, but then he had a crust punk band as well. And I used to play them. And I guess now now it escapes me. And it's funny, with a few years ago when the show had a different name, we interviewed, and they were actually Canadian as well. Again, now I forget who they are.
Dope Throne? Is it Dope Throne?
Not Dope Throne, but I know them. Yeah, not personally.
Sludgy, or like they have a bit of a crusty sludge.
Yeah,
them right.
Yeah. I remember this when again, I can't remember the name of this band that's still active. And the guy, I think it was the first ever interview he'd ever did with anybody. And during the show, his cat jumped on him. And we were like, at the time, we're like, oh man, don't worry about it. Just go with it. It's organic, and it's natural. It doesn't matter. Maybe if not, someone walks in the room at an inappropriate time, that could be a different experience. But no, I definitely would like to explore all of those bands for sure. That sounds awesome. And I'm glad to hear that the scene's recovering well after the pandemic, because it hit everything so hard. There was lots of labels and bands it finished off, even theatres. There was a label who used to send me stuff from Australia, and it wiped them out. And they'd been around for 15 years. And they said to me one day, look, we just it finished them. So I know you're trying your best to concentrate.
Our good local venue was killed by the pandemic. We had the Fox Lounge, which was kind of the place. It was the club where everyone played.
Yeah.
And we currently don't, like in our town, a 200,000 person town of Barrie, we don't really have a real home. Like there's a dance club that's been around forever, and let us play on Thursdays and Sundays. And then there was a DIY club that's now kind of gone under. But so yeah, we're still looking for a home for the underground scene in our town.
Like a good proper dive club, you know.
Yeah. Something where authentic. The sweat drips off the ceilings.
Yeah.
And it has to have the holes in the wall that have never been repaired. Yeah, all those places. Like, yeah, we'll get around to that one day, Dave, and then it's just left there. You come out even dirtier than when you first arrived.
All character, all, it's the place you want to be. Like, and the place we get to play is great. It has a great, because it's a dance club, it's got this phenomenal like light show, and it's got fog, and it's got like backdrops and stuff. So for the psychedelic stuff, it's great. But a lot of pumpkins are like, they don't want a strobe show and they don't want lasers and stuff, right? So
yeah. But you know what, man? Those dive bars, they can have really good atmospheres because they've got that intimacy with the crowd. And yes, you can come out smelling like something that's half dead in an alleyway or whatever. And I guess the wallpaper is truly alternative because there isn't any, and there's only bits of the wall appearing. But usually, someone, like I said, they have such a good atmosphere, and people are all friendly because people are willing there to have other people's sweat drip on them off the ceiling. That shows they really are there to support the music and support the bands. That's dedication.
A connection.
Yeah.
And we're definitely thankful for being near city centers like Toronto and Hamilton, and those dive bars are. And I've said this many a times, and it's like a comfy pair of pajamas, with holes in them or paint or mustard stains. It doesn't matter. It's so comfortable once you're in them. You feel at home. So when we go to a few clubs that we just adore, there's like the Bovine Sex Club is our favorite one. There's the Doors Pub in Hamilton. And what was the other one I really enjoyed? There was an actual skate park that you got to go into called the Kill.
Oh, man.
And we were like in the bowl, and like the feel is just, it's raw, and it's not trying to be anything other than the beautiful mess that it is. And so we get to be a part of that scene, and I love that.
The Bovine is cool because it looks like a junkyard exploded and hit the walls and the ceiling. It's just junkyard everywhere.
Post-airport,
It's a long kind of thin bar, so it packs up quickly and it gets really sweaty and crammed, and it's a great place to play.
Man, I've shared this story with some other guests as well. One of the funniest gigs I'd been to, and it was in this, and I mean the dive bar of dive bars. It was in a city called Bradford, which is a couple of hours away from here, I guess. And again, I got lost on the way there because of my navigational skills. And I remember at the time I had to call up a band that I was playing my radio shows and said, dude, I'm in here. Where the hell do I go? And it was kind of like a comedy movie from start to finish. There was a girl stood, who I thought was just a regular girl, outside one of the local stores or something. And I stopped her to ask for questions. She was very kind to me and said, you do know what kind of work I do, don't I? And me, being in my own little world, oblivious, quickly realised, and she said, you're in the right direction, you need to go off, but I thought that'd have been luck. I ended up getting arrested. When I got to this place, like we've been describing, it was like in this tiny cellar bar. The sweat dripped off us. There was holes in the walls everywhere. The stage, if you could call it, that was literally a step, and it was tiny. and it was full of raw D-beat bands and punk bands and some hardcore bands, and we were all crammed together. We were like stood like this, you could hardly move. There was so many random cases of hilarity there. One of the punk bands, the guy got off stage to come in the crowd, you know, on the mic, and that for some reason, maybe they were really drunk or stoned or whatever, the bassist said live, "Can you all point to our singer where he is in the crowd? Because we can't see him." And this is a part I remember at the time, a D-beat band from Liverpool who used to play a lot on my shows. Oh God, before they even started playing, he come to me and went, "Oh guys, good to see you and everything. How are you doing?" I'm like, "Good." And this place, beyond me, it's full of vegans as well. And again, I'm not judging, each their own. He lets out a charming belch and goes, "I just had a bacon sarnie earlier." The whole room, and I'm looking, I'm like, "Oh God, we're not going to get out here alive." He continues to play whilst this is happening. Oh no, I'm killing it. I'm seriously not making this up. I wish at the time I'd filmed this and could have said, "Look, I know what happened at this punk show I went to." Whilst they're playing, and you know, you always get at these shows where you get the random drunk who just appears from nowhere out of the corner, like he just wakes up and like he doesn't know where he is, and then he just starts randomly talking to whoever. The curtains at the side of this thing, what passed for a stage, the guy goes up on the stage and he gets himself trapped in the curtains, and all you could see was this head hanging out of the curtain whilst it looked like he was being strangled to death. The band is still playing, and you couldn't obviously hear, but you could just hear his words as if he was so that show is one I've always remembered because it was one of the funniest shows ever. But on the serious side, the atmosphere, like we were saying with these dive bars, it was awesome. Everybody was friendly. We all had a good time. And then the comedy side was just the bonus on top of it. I'm not saying you want that to happen when you're playing someone to strangle themselves to death or something.
We've brought the awkward to the scene sometimes, and then sometimes we've just found we're very approachable. We're very warm-hearted people. So yeah, we've had some kind of townies, locals.
Oh my God.
Come upon you. You know, where sometimes a lot of our scene, you have a lot of guys who stand tough, arms crossed, you know, very serious.
Pigeon chest.
They're, they're in their mode, and all the power to them. But we've had our fair share of people who have come right into your personal space.
Oh my God, man. I got COVID from a townie. This guy was wearing so Aaron Rodgers is a NFL quarterback. I don't know if he plays for the Green Bay Packers. He used to.
Oh.
So he was wearing an Aaron Rodgers jersey, and it still had the security tag on it. So he had like lifted it off the rack, and he got a $5 discount. So this guy wearing a stolen shirt with the security tag still on it, just having the time of his life, wasted out of his mind, and he was telling stories and jokes and spitting the whole time he was talking. And it was
God,
the height of COVID, or not during the height, I guess it was right at the end of COVID, but it was still there. So it was limited, amounts of people at bars. A lot of people still had masks on, but he ended up spitting like into my mouth a bunch of times. And then I got so sick after like the 2 weeks after that, I was just like on my deathbed. So anyways, I got COVID from a townie. It was fun times.
Damn it! It's funny, man. Townie, we have that slang here as well, and I know they say it in Boston as well. And it's funny. There's two here. They'll say woolly-backs for someone like that lives in the country, and another in rural areas, and other names that maybe answer polite. And then it's funny. They used to call townies obviously anyone who lives in a town or a city. But now in recent years, it's took on more of a meaning, kind of refers, I guess, more to kind of like hooligans, I guess.
Okay.
Kind of it's took on more that meaning. So it's kind of quite interesting.
For us, it's like the person who's kind of grown into the wall of the bar, like they're part of
the wall.
They come if you sold the bar, they would come with it as part of the purchase.
Yeah.
You know?
That would make a good picture in the brochure, wouldn't it? A guy there.
And it is what it is. You've accepted those fates. You're like, that's who you are. Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
It's all good.
I remember one time at a show, and God, that this dude I think had some issues, and he come up to me, and I'll maybe tell you off air about this, the real version, I guess the more detailed version a little bit. And he was walking around the venue at the time telling people about the dream he had, and that someone had spoke to him and was telling him to do things. And this guy, had like the biker's bandana, the leather and everything. And everyone, you just saw people just gradually going, moving more ways, like, yeah, crazy person, let's just distance ourselves more and more. But yeah, there's always lots of those characters. Is there anything that you would both like to shout out that, may have forgotten about in our, well, I would say our off-topic tangents, me getting excited and stuff? Yeah.
Well, definitely check out Bandcamp. There's no better way to support small local artists in your area or around the world. Bandcamp has been nothing but a supporter of the scenes and all scenes. And I really appreciate what they do and how they promote bands like us, bands that are starting, bands that have been around for a long time. And they really do put a lot of the profits back to the band. So I really enjoy that. And for us, it's, we enjoy our scene and playing, and come check out a show if you're in Canada. Maybe someday we'll make it over to your area.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
It'd be a dream come true for us. Always look for new music. We're always trying to be relevant on social media, the beast that it is. And we're always open to conversation, inspiration. We're, I don't know. We are who we are. We aren't who we aren't.
Yep.
You?
I think we covered all the bands. I don't know. I think I appreciate you having us on.
Yeah.
We
had a lot of fun.
You're very welcome, and definitely will help your Novodol, if I remembered correctly. I would definitely love to chat to you all about Novodol, and was the another band as well?
Sons of Arrakis.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
you would enjoy talking to Sunblow as well. They're very high fantasy-esque.
Ooh.
Oh
yeah.
They've got that kind of sleep vibe.
Yeah.
Like long, heavy riffs, but he's very much the lead writer, I guess. Jay writes a lot about fantastical things.
Yeah. I'm sold already. I was as soon as I saw even high fantasy was mentioned in your bio. I remember said to Curtis, right, I'm sold. That's it. Come on. Could have been an instrumental band or literally just one dude in a garage or something. I'd have been nope, come on, want to talk to them. But what I've noticed and what I think's good with you as well is you both put out a very positive vibe, very positive aura. You're very open with your music, which is good. That's refreshing to hear as well. Obviously approachable. This is who we are. This is what we do, and that's a good thing. And a genuine supporters of the music. So that warmth and passion for it really comes. I know we're behind screens here, but it does come across. And that's good when you've got a band like that, especially good for the fans as well, because then that's translated into your music too. So, folks, I do want to say definitely support Aawks. Glad I've been able to pronounce it correctly. Check out Bandcamp, follow them on all the social media stuff. I'm kind of a work in progress in social media, but I'll get there. Don't forget to follow, support, and subscribe to the channel. I'll put all the links for Aawks in the description as well, so you can check them out there. You were both welcome on the show anytime. Definitely love to do a deep dive with you about the new album as well. I think that would be a lot of fun. We can get into all the themes and topics behind it as well. That would be cool stuff. So, folks, it's awkward pause time, and I'll see you on. I'll see you on the next episode of Fed Up. And again, thanks to Aawks for joining me. Take care, everybody, and peace out for now. And awkward pause time whilst we stop the stream.